Hello everyone, good evening, and we thank you all for your presence here. We will begin with a video presentation of the Hack Something project on the topic of burp suit demonstration. The overall outline of a presentation includes the introduction, installation and setup, and proxy concepts. Further, we will discuss the features such as the web application scanning, target sitemap, proxy intercept, intruder and repeater. Further, we will discuss about the session hijacking vulnerability that we have targeted on the vulnerable web application and try to understand its risk, impact and why the vulnerability exists within the application, and we will conclude with the expert demonstration. Myself, Kiritpal Singh, will take you further with the presentation. There has been increased demand for web applications across the organizations. Hence, the need for web application testing software is on the rise. Burpsuit is one of the industry-leading software for web application testing and is offered in three types of models: Community Edition, Professional, Enterprise Edition. In our demonstration, we have used the Professional version. The graphical user interface of the Burpsuit makes it easier for the pen testers to perform application testing, and it is basically a collection of tools and rich features which, as a package, makes Burpsuit the most popular web application tool. It can conduct initial analysis of applications, attack surface, discover issues, and helps in exploiting vulnerabilities. We are aware that SSL promises integrity and secrecy, but can an attacker bypass SSL? The answer is yes, since while using Burpsuit, the Burp certificate is trusted on the client's browser and the SSL traffic will be visible in plain text in the Burpsuit proxy. However, if the same traffic is intercepted in the Wireshark sniffer, we'll be able to see the encrypted traffic only. Now the question that comes to the mind is how can we evade this situation? Since most organizations needs to safeguard their sensitive information such as credit card information or other sensitive PII data, they usually choose payload encryption as a form to protect their data. In this diagram, we can understand better why we can see the SSL traffic decrypted on the Burpsuit's browser. As we can see, the proxy sits exactly in between the browser, that is the client, and the web server. Since proxy certificate is installed on the client's browser and initial configurations are done to forward the traffic to the proxy, this establishes a separate SSL connection between the browser and the proxy. Similarly, a separate SSL connection is established between the proxy and the server as well. Hence, we can conclude that the web proxy can read the HTTPS traffic data. In a demo, we'll cover the following steps of the Burpsuit download and installation, which includes the proxy configuration and installing the Burp certificate as well. Now we will begin with the overview of all the core features of the Burpsuit quickly, post which we'll also show its basic functionalities in the actual tool itself. A new scan function supports either crawling or crawling and audit both. Suppose the goal is to index the website's content and discover issues, select crawl and audit. Otherwise, select crawl only, which will crawl the whole website and list all the links belonging to a particular host. The target sitemap feature under the target tab gives a complete structural overview of the target site, and it displays all the crawled branches of the particular websites and the issue activity as well. Burpsuit proxy is the heart of the Burpsuit's user-driven workflow and helps in interception, inspection, and modifications of requests on the fly. It serves as a middleman between a client and a server, and the pentester can examine the captured request to look for any anomalies or vulnerabilities and can further examine the interesting request by passing them to additional tools or features like scanner, repeater, and intruder. Intruder is used to perform fuzzing and enumeration attacks such as brute force attacks, and we will also observe this in a demo. Repeater involves manually changing values of parameters and analyzing the application server responses to discover flaws. We will see a demo of changing the value of the method type to analyze the response. Now we will begin with the demo. Now we will begin with how to download and install Burpsuit. So we will just go to the downloads page of the Portsfigure website, and we can click on try for free. Like if we have a corporate email ID, we can get a 30 days free trial for the professional version. The installation is quite simple and straightforward. It just requires a license key which the Portsfigure provides during the subscription. Once downloaded, the most important feature is to configure the proxy options. So as you can see, it is already running and the interface is set to the loopback IP and the port number 8080. The similar configuration should be done on the Firefox browser. As we can see, these are the proxy settings. By default, it is set to no proxy, but we have selected to the manual proxy configuration with the same loopback IP and the port number which was configured in the proxy settings of the burp suit. And we can also use this proxy for HTTPS to enable the burp suit to capture the traffic for the HTTPS websites as well. Now, once this is done, you need to go to HTTP burp suit website, click download CS certificate. Once downloaded, you have to go to the settings, certificates, and import that particular certificate. That's it. So once configured, you need to check if the proxy is working or not. Just go to intercept, and as we can see, intercept is already on. Just click on refresh. We can see the request has been captured, and that's it. So it's working. So now we can explore the other options of the proxy. So the other options are to put filters on the intercept client request and the server responses. So as we can see, we have put this filter, which indicates that the URL in the target scope only needs to be uh, intercepted. So if we want to see the scope that we have set, we have already set to the URLs that we are interested to work on and test the vulnerabilities on these websites. So this will avoid the unnecessary other request that has been sent by the browser to be captured by a tool, and hence it will create less confusion. So yeah, similarly the other to intercept the WebSocket messages, also the match and replace function, which will be discussed in the session hijacking vulnerability. This is the HTTP history, the whatever you passively scroll through the website and whatever you intercept, all of them are visible in this particular window. You can just click, check the response, check the response of it. You can see the raw response as well as render it. Yeah, that's it. So other than this, you also need to check like how we can scan a particular website. So we can click on crawl or crawl and audit, and we can just define the URLs that needs to be scanned. On the scan configuration, we can select deep for comprehensive scanning. Then also for much better results, you just enter the known credentials if you have it. So this will just start the scan, and as you can see, we have already one scan showing over here, and we can see the progress bar. Also the issues, the high, medium, the low, and the information ones are indicated by the color code on this side as well as over here. If you click on any of them, you can see the request and response, and it also indicates one highlight. You can see where the vulnerability actually exists. Now you can also see the target sitemap, which indicates the crawled websites, and the issues, the advisory, which is actually similar to the dashboard that we've already seen. We can also check any request response of any particular request captured anywhere in the burp suite, and you can just send it, right click and send it to the repeater, intruder, if you want to perform further analysis. Now we will test the intruder functionality of the burp suite. So we have opened this login page of a vulnerable website, Altero Mutual, and as we have entered we know the correct username, we have entered it as jsmith, and we will just perform a basic password brute forcing attack. So we will just enter the wrong password, such as password itself. We will just turn on the intercept, click on login, and the request is captured. We will just right click on it and send it to intruder, and here as we can see, we already have the request. By default, you have to first clear all the payloads, then you have to select the desired payload that you want to perform brute force on. Just highlight it, click on add. So here now it has been double added, so I think now it is back to the default settings. Just clear all of them, click on password, add, then go on payloads. You can just set a simple list, and I've already made a small dictionary with the correct password at the end, that is demo1234. We can just start the attack, and as we can see, there is an unusual length observed in the last response compared to the other ones. So all are 220, but this one is 422. So when we analyze the response of this particular request, we can also see there is a set cookie, which is ideally done by the application during the authentication process. For the other ones, you won't be able to see it. So you can just test this response, show response in the browser, turn off the intercept, open another tab. Oh, it hasn't been copied. Oh, you have to just click on copy, then click paste and go. As you can see, we have already logged in. We can see the sign off tab over here. and we can see hello John Smith. Now we will explore the last feature, that is the repeater. We can just click on intercept on, capture the request, right click on the request, send to repeater. Then we can just send it by the name itself. Repeater means that to send a request again and again to the browser. You can just do alterations, check if any other method types are allowed. You can put head and you can see, yeah, the response is 200. Okay, so hence the other method types are also accepted. So we can see another vulnerability as well, that we can see the server version Apache 1.1, and the attacker can perform target specific attacks on the server, and he can know the known vulnerabilities against this specific version. Thank you. So this is all about the functionalities. Now I will request Hiren Kumar to proceed further with the presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Hiren Kumar Ramani, and in the second half of the presentation, I'll be demonstrating some of the Bobsuit features that can be used to exploit session hijacking and session fixation vulnerabilities. Before we jump into the demonstration part, let's take a look at it, that what exactly it is and why does it exist. Well, session hijacking is a vulnerability where an attacker steals a valid web user session ID and later it can be used to inject it into the browser using a different proxy tools. Bobsuit is one of that proxy tool which can be used to inject the session IDs. Whereas session fixation is a vulnerability where session ID doesn't expire until the browser is restarted by a valid web user. The reason being it exists in web application could be once a user is authenticated, web application fails to regenerate new session IDs. That means the server doesn't re-verify a session ID once user is authenticated. An attacker can leverage this weakness to illegitimately access a valid web user session. Now let's take a look at what could be the possible risk and impact because of session hijacking. Well, the possible risk could be the session takeover, which means have access to the valid web user session, stealing a confidential data, and access to the personally identifiable information belonging to the web user account. The possible impact because of session hijacking could be access to the information such as name, email address, mobile number, credit card details, address, and any other account relevant details belonging to the valid web user. Further, this can also be escalated to perform fraudulent banking transactions, such as attacker can transfer funds from a valid web user account to his or her account. Attacker can also change and reset the username and password of a valid web user account, which can lead to a loss of access to an account. Now let's take a look at the demonstration part. For the session hijacking exploitation, we are going to use some of the features available in Bobsuit, such as repeater, decoder, and match and replace rules available in proxy options tab. And we are going to use a vulnerable website developed by IBM, which is altoro.testfire.net, and we are going to have two accounts. The one will be the valid web user and the second will be the attacker, and we are going to access those accounts in two different browsers. The first will be the Firefox and the second will be the Chrome browser. So let's log in into the valid web user account. Speed is going to be our valid web user account. We can see the valid web user name Sam Speed and the account number is 80,006. For the attacker purpose, attacker, we are going to use J Smith, and we are going to log in into that account, and John Smith will be our attacker's account, and for that 80,002 will be our account details. So for the first time we are going to capture this valid web user request in our Bobsuit. For that we need to configure the proxy listeners, which I have already done earlier. So this one is already configured in my Bobsuit and also in my both browsers. So let's just turn on the intercept and intercept the request by clicking on any link available on the web user account. So here we can see that we have intercepted the request for the web user Sam Speed, and we have a parameter here JSON ID, which is our session ID. Let's send this one to the repeater right now and keep it as a reference for right now, and let me rename this one victim, and forward this request. As of now we don't need that, so we're going to do the same with our attacker's account as well. So let's click on the go, and we have our accounts. Send this to the repeater, forward this one as of now, and rename this tab to the attacker. So for performing session hijacking, what we need to do is we need to replace the session ID of a victim's account with the attacker's one. And we can see here we have a session ID parameter in attacker's request body. So let's replace that one as of now. So I'm going to attacker session ID. So okay, this one now is done, and let me see what is the response once it is done. You can see that we have got the response 200 okay from a browser. Let's try to see the web view in Bubsuit. Just go to the render tab and it will show us a web view, and we can see that under account history 80,002, in the balance details section we can see the 80,006 saving, which means this website is vulnerable to session hijacking and we can do the account takeover. Let's copy the response to see it in the browser, and let's paste it into the browser of Chrome where our attacker account is already logged in, and we can see the clear-cut response. As of now we can see the account details for the 80,002, but let's turn on the interceptor as of now and try to click on the select account 80,006 and see what exactly account details are for that account. We can see that we have here session ID for the attacker's account. We'll go to the repeater tab and copy the session ID for the victim one and place it in place of the attacker's session ID. Let's forward this one and go to the Chrome tab where our attacker account is, and we can see the balance web user account 80,006. Now let's try to escalate this session hijacking vulnerability into the by performing a transfer fund or something. But before we do that, we need to hardcode the session ID of web user with the attacker's request session ID, so that every time we don't have to replace the session ID manually. For that we have a feature in proxy options tab, match and replace. We just have to create a rule. We have to select the request header. We have to place here attacker session ID and replace it with the valid web user session ID, and just click OK and it will create a rule. I have already done this one earlier, so let me just enable this one as of now and turn on my proxy to see like whether it is working perfectly or not. Let's go to the transfer fund, and we have intercepted request in web browser, and we can see that valid web user session ID is already replaced with the attacker's session ID. So let's just forward this one as of now, turn off the intercept as we have already performed the match and rule, so we don't need to intercept request every time. And here we can see that from account and to account we have only two savings and checking. But what I want to do to escalate this vulnerability is I want to transfer funds from 80,006, which is a valid web user accounts, to the 80,002, which is attacker's account. And for that we need to intercept this traffic to do some parameter tampering. So let me just transfer the 55,000 and turn on the intercept and click on transfer money. Sorry, we need to change this to 80,007, as from and to account cannot be the same. Let's transfer the money, and we can see the session ID is as it is. We have this additional ID details in the cookie parameter. Let me try to send it to the decoder as it is already encoded. Let's send it to the decoder. Go to the decoder tab and select decoded as base64, as most of the session IDs are decoded into the base64, and we can see here 80,002 and all the belonging savings and checking details. So this session ID is validating to the account, and it is a client side filter. That's why we need to remove this filter from our request body and set it keep the 80,006 as it is and change the 80,007 to the 80,002 as of now, and keep the amount as it is and send that request. Let's check what it gives us response, and let's go to the Chrome browser, and here we can see that 5,000 is successfully transferred from 80,006 to the 80,000. Let me turn off my intercept traffic, and also let me disable this one just to cross verify like the transfer is done successfully into the attacker account or not. As of now we are in the attacker's account, and let's see what is the transaction, that whether 53,000 is transferred. Yes, we can see that it is deposited successfully, and let's go to the victim's account and try to check like whether it is withdrawn or not, and we can see that the amount is withdrawn. We can also check by going through the withdrawal transaction, view recent transaction, and we can see all the details, the posted timings and dates and the transaction ID as well. So this is the how session hijacking can be done with the Bob Shift features. That's everything from our end. Thank you for watching our presentation.